Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto had crystal release? Part 3. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. There's no way you can beat them. It came from a gloomy voice in the doorway. They all turned around to see a little boy, not much older than 7 or 8 years old. You will just die. Inari. Where have you been? I've missed you so much, a loving voice sounded. Team 7 looked around before they were shocked to find out it came from Tazuna. Inari ran over to his grandfather and hugged him. You're home, Jai-chan. I've missed you too. Inari, say help to them. They have escorted your grandpa all the way from Konoha, and they will be staying with us until the bridge has been built. Inari looked at the foreign shinobi Ka-chan. They're all going to die. There's no way anyone can stand up to Gato and live. This caused glare from Sakura and Naruto PFT. How dare he? He doesn't even know what we're capable of. Naruto glanced at Tazuna. I guess it runs in the family, he thought, remembering how Tazuna had reacted the first time he saw them. Inari started to walk away. If you don't want to die, you should go home. No one can stop Gato. And with that said, he disappeared out the door. Tazuna looked down at the floor with a solemn look. I'm sorry for that. Team 7 was once again shocked. Not only had Tazuna spoken with love to the little brat that had insulted them, he was sad now. There was much more to Tazuna than they knew. Kakashi waved with his hand. No problem. Now, team, we will take today to rest from the journey. Tomorrow we will start the training. Elsewhere in the middle of an unknown forest, the young fake hunter Nin was squatting beside Zabuza's body, slowly unfolding a leather roll with various medical tools. He turned to look at Zabuza, trying to find any damage that may have been done. Other than scratches here and there, the only problem right now was the long needles in his neck. He looked in the area where he had hit him with the needles. It seems I have to cut the clothes off his mouth first and make him cough up the blood first. He took a scissor-like tool from the scroll and slowly closed in on the clothes. When his hand was no more than a few centimeters from the target, Zabuza's hand shot up and grabbed the fake hunter Nin's. I can do that on my own, thank you very much. It came from Zabuza as he slowly opened his eyes and began to peel the clothes off. Oh, the boy said you're already awake. He didn't sound surprised by a long shot. Zabuza grunted as he sat up. Geez, you're so rough, he said as he began picking out the needles harshly. This caused a gasp from the young boy, who frowned under the mask. I could say the same thing about you, Zabuza-san. If you keep picking those out like that, you're just going to damage a blood vessel. Then you're going to bleed out and die for real. Zabuza didn't seem to care as he continued to pick out the last of the needles. He sat silently for a second before turning his gaze on the young boy. How long are you going to wear that fake mask? It's not needed here, so take it off, Haku. Sorry, I forgot. It's been a while since I have needed to use this. The boy said, beginning to lodge off the mask from his face. Though it did help pull off the act and fool the shinobi from Konoha. If I didn't intervene when I did, you would have been killed for sure, he finished. His mask was off. His face didn't look like a boy's face. The curves were very soft and the skin fair. And his expression just shouted I couldn't hurt a fly if I wanted to, though Zabuza knew that it wasn't true. That may very well be, but you didn't need to attack my neck if you wanted to put me into a fake death. You're still that same wicked girl I picked up all those years ago. Haku smiled. That may very well be true. But I couldn't help it. I didn't want to scar your beautiful body, Zabuza-san. Also, it's much easier to aim at the neck since it has much less muscle tissue. Zabuza tried to stand up but only made it halfway up before falling on his butt. Haku made her way over to help him. You won't be able to move for a week or so. But knowing you, that will not get in your way, Zabuza-san. Zabuza sat still for a few more moments, catching his breath again. You're pure, clever, and not tainted at all. He paused for a moment, looking over at his student. That's what I like about you. Haku blushed. Well, I am still a child. She looked over the area, noticing that the fog was lifting. The fog is lifting. We should probably make our way back. Zabuza nodded affirmatively as Haku paused. She turned a concerned look at him. Will you be okay next time? Zabuza sighed. I really don't know. I know I could take the Sharingan on one-on-one, but they also have a Shoton user. We have no idea what he can do. He broke my clone and water prison with only little preparation. Given I hadn't pumped as much chakra into it as I normally would have, but still he looked at Haku's concerned face. I need you to train to take him on. I don't think he will be an easy opponent, not even for your Hyoten. Haku nodded. Anything for you, Zabuza-san. She helped him up, and they started walking towards their hideout to recuperate. Later that night, Tazuna, Tsunami, and Team 7 had just eaten dinner, made by Tsunami. Inari hadn't come down. After he had said hello to his grandfather, he had been in his room watching the ocean according to the Tsunami. Naruto leaned back and patted his stomach. That was really something. Not as good as Ichiraku's ramen, but good nonetheless, he said with a pleased smile on his lips. Thank you, I guess, Tsunami said. You should, Sakura said, taking another bite of the fish. He rarely compares anything to ramen, not to mention Ichiraku's ramen. While they had been a team, Sakura had learned a thing or two about Naruto. He was a trainaholic, he actually had a head on his shoulders, and he loved ramen. On more than one occasion he called it Kami's gift to man. I'm honored then, Tsunami said with a blush. Naruto stretched his body and yawned loudly. Well, I think I'm going to hit the rack. See you all tomorrow, he said, walking out the kitchen. He walked up the stairs and was heading for his room when he heard something from Inari's room. Slowly he opened the door to a crack to see what was going on. Inside, Inari was sitting in the windowsill. He was looking out at the ocean, but that was not all. As far as Naruto could see, he was holding a picture. Then he heard sobs from Inari, who were pressing the picture frame further into his hug. Tusan came half smothered from Inari. Naruto was looking with compassion. I guess he lost his father. And I'll bet a year's supply of ramen that it was Gato who killed him. Naruto closed the door quietly, making sure Inari didn't hear him, and made his way to his room. The next morning, the three genin of Team 7 were standing in front of their sensei, which had climbed out of bed with crutches this morning. They were standing in a forest clearing not long from Tazuna's house. Tazuna had agreed to wait with continuing the bridge till the next day so Kakashi could get his team started on the training regime. Kakashi looked over his team. They were all looking back at him determinedly, even Sakura. He took an extra look at her. What has come over her? She normally just looks at and adores Sasuke. Oh well, it can't be bad. He coughed in his hand to clear his throat. Well then, let's get started. We're going to work on your chakra these next days. Sasuke and Sakura looked disappointed, while Naruto looked indifferent. Sasuke was the first to speak. Chakra? We can already use chakra and form. Let's just get on with it. Yeah, I agree. Sakura said. Naruto looked at her with an "are you kidding me" look. She always agreed with Sasuke. She didn't have to voice it. Kakashi shook his head. No. You may be able to use chakra, but you have far from mastered it. Now, for today's exercise we're going to the genin and look at him with high expectations to climb trees. And once again, Sakura and Sasuke were dumbstruck. This time it was Sakura who voiced her opinion about climbing trees. How are climbing trees going to help us with our chakra control? Or help us at all for that matter? Like this, Naruto said, going over to a tree, only stopping for a second to concentrate his chakra before stepping onto the wood and beginning to walk vertically up the tree. Kakashi nodded. That's right. I see you've already mastered it. Care to explain to your teammates what you're doing? Sasuke was glaring at Naruto. How much ahead of me have you come since the academy? What am I talking about? He isn't ahead of me. He just knows an exercise that I don't. He can't be ahead of me. He is a clan-less loser, and I'm the heir to the strongest clan in Konoha. Yeah, that's right. Naruto shrugged. It's pretty easy when you get the hang of it, he said, walking up below a branch and hanging his head down, proving his point. All you need to do is mold and concentrate your chakra below your feet, creating a suction effect to keep you on the surface you want to climb. But you really should watch out. If you build up too much chakra in your feet, it's just going to blast you off. And if you do the opposite, not building up enough, you won't get the suction's effect and you will just fall off. Very good, Naruto. As to why this is going to help you in the long run, Sakura, when you fight an opponent, what is one of the most basic skills a ninja uses? Kakashi looked at the pink head. I guess ninjutsu? Sakura answered tentatively. That's right. And what do you need to use ninjutsu? Kakashi continued. Chakra, the girl answered, realization covering her face. Right again. So by doing this exercise, your chakra control, and therefore your chakra utilization skills, will improve and you will be able to use more ninjutsu. The Jounin finished the explanation. He looked at the two grounded genin to see if they had understood. Sasuke looked pissed, Kakashi thinking it was highly likely because of Naruto. Which caused him to look at said member of Team 7 and sweat dropped. Now you're just showing off. Naruto was currently swinging back and forth, only connected to the tree by 1 foot. Kakashi cleared his throat, getting the attention. Meh, Naruto, mind coming down now? Naruto grinned, releasing the chakra in his foot, causing him to fall to the ground at high speed. Sakura gasped, but it really wasn't needed. Naruto simply flipped halfway down, landing with a quiet thud on the ground. No problem, he said, still holding the same grin. So does that mean I can go on ahead with my own training? Naruto hadn't had a chance to really train the last few days, for obvious reasons. He wanted to progress that water balloon exercise, and he also had to do some practice in his calligraphy. He had never thought that it would be a big part of his shinobi career to write, at least not until he became the Hokage, other than the mission reports here and there, and he never imagined taking it to such a high level. But if he wanted to get better at genjutsu, he needed to learn to write fast and precisely, else all his knowledge about seals would be for nothing. And maybe he could also get started on that water walking exercise. He had wanted to start on that for ages, who wouldn't want to walk on water, but had waited till he was advanced enough in the tree climbing. Finally when they had gotten this mission, so he hadn't gotten started yet. And then there was the matter of keeping his training method a secret. Naruto gulped. Sandaime Jiji told me that he would have me get all the missions involving Tora until I took over the Hokage hat myself, if I ever exposed it to someone not meant to see it. The silver-haired Jounin glanced over his blonde student before shrugging. I guess it won't be a problem. But since you already know the 3 climbing and has mastered, as far as I can see, I will assign you to guard duty tomorrow. Naruto's eyes narrowed. You're just assigning me to guard duty so that you can stay in bed all day and read Iro Sennin's perverted books, aren't you? Kakashi waved his hand in a dismissive motion, laughing nervously. Now, where would you have gotten that idea? Off to train you go, he finished, hoping that the prospect of training was more exciting than exposing him as a pervert for the rest of the team. Naruto stood still for a few more moments before sighing in a defeated manner and ran into the forest to find a clearing he could use for training. As soon as Naruto was away, Kakashi turned to the remainder of his team and started them on their training. Next morning at the bridge, Naruto was sitting on the railing of the bridge, taking a break from his water balloon, and was looking over the bridge. It had been a slow day really. Tazuna had told him to get up around 4 AM as they were needed at the bridge at 5. Naruto, not wanting to miss out on any training, had made a clone with 3/4 of his chakra and sent it to the forest clearing he had trained in yesterday. It had chakra to about 70 clones, but he was only making 30 or so. The reason being that they were on a mission where they could engage in battle against foreign shinobi at any moment, so it wouldn't be that he was totally exhausted if that happened. They had been the first to arrive, with 20 or so workers slowly filling in as the time got closer and closer to 6 AM. As they were about to start, one of the workers had asked where the shinobi guarding them were, to which Tazuna had pointed at Naruto. This caused disgruntled looks from almost all the workers, and one even had the nerve of calling him a short brat. Tazuna had smirked, since he had come to know Naruto just a little bit the past few days. And, as he had thought, Naruto had shown the worker what he could do, almost fully surrounding him with crystal, before 3 razor-sharp blades had shot out and were inches from slicing him. This, of course, had closed the mouths of many and all the workers who quickly went to work, not wanting to get on the bad side of their guard. Naruto's side. He was developing a little temper when it came to his height. He looked down beside him. There were broken water balloons. Not shattered at all, they were just punctured, but he was happy. It was progress. He had made the breakthrough yesterday when one of his clones had sat down and analyzed what they had seen Jiraiya do a couple of days earlier and had realized that what they were doing looked completely different. That's when he had gotten the idea to swirl the water in more than one direction. It had been a success, but it was still damn hard. Boy, are you bored, or what? Tazuna's voice sounded, bringing Naruto back to the bridge. Huh? No, not really. I was just taking a break from my training, Naruto answered, leaning back closed and enjoying the sun on his face. Tazuna frowned. Training? You're just playing with water balloons. Naruto chuckled internally. He had figured that the way Tazuna showed curiosity was by insulting. When talking to strangers anyway. Naruto shook his head to answer Tazuna and made eye contact with him. It's a bit harder than that. I have to burst it open with nothing but my chakra. It's a lot harder than it looks, you know. I don't know. May I have a word with you, Tazuna? A voice from behind them interrupted. Both of them looked at the newcomer. Tazuna put down the little log he had been carrying. Sure thing, Jiichi. Is something wrong? Well, I have thought a lot about it, and I think I'm going to quit building the bridge, Jiichi said, looking down on the ground, as if ashamed, not going unnoticed by Naruto. What? Not you too, Jiichi. Why the sudden change of mind? Tazuna asked, surprised and a little outraged. Tazuna, I have known you for a long time, and you have become a good friend. I want to help, but if I get much more involved in this, Gato will after me when he's done with you. I have to think about the wife and the kids, you know, Jiichi replied. Naruto could see that he was really split in this decision, but he had finally valued his family more. Naruto couldn't blame him. It was something Naruto longed after. He longed after getting a father and mother, or just knowing who they were. Naruto respected the man's decision. Tazuna didn't look that convinced. Jiichi continued, I want to build the bridge and save Nami as much as the next islander, but everything will lose meaning if you die. Naruto cocked an eyebrow, so he is also concerned for his old friend? I like that guy. Jiichi almost looked pleadingly at Tazuna. Why don't we stop building the bridge? Naruto was, to say the least, shocked. He hadn't expected the man to suggest that, not after all he had learned Tazuna had done for it to be built, including lying his ass off to the Hokage, one of the mightiest persons on the elemental continents. Tazuna had regained his calm look and answered just as calmly, you know I can't do that. This bridge is our bridge. Not just yours or mine, or the workers' bridge, but the bridge of all the islanders of Nami no Kuni. This is the bridge, built on the hopes of the people, the hope that we can break free from Gator's rule, that we can increase our distribution and transportation that will increase the wealth in this poor country. But if we die, people will know that Tazuna the bridge builder died for what he believed in. That he died in the hopes that someone would take over his work. He died believing that Nami no Kuni would break free from Gato, if not by his own hands, then by the hands of his successor. He put a hand on his old friend's shoulder. I can't ask you to do it, but I will continue to build this bridge until my dying breath. I don't blame you if you don't want to risk your family. You can go home if you want. Jiichi looked sad at his old friend before giving up, convincing him with a sigh. He took off his uniform and the tools he had used and gave it to Tazuna. I'm sorry, old friend. And with that he left the bridge. Tazuna stood there for a while, just staring at where his old friend had left. He didn't even hear the steps behind him and only noticed a person when he took the uniform and tools of his hands. He turned around to see his blonde guard putting on the uniform. He gave the kid a questioning look. I thought you said you shouldn't overwork yourself? Naruto grinned back at the old man. How can I sit still and not help after you gave that speech? You have gotten a little more respect in my eyes, Ajusan, but only a little. Tazuna grinned back at the kid. He had come to like him. He was lively and didn't give up. Thanks, kid, I'm sure it will help. I just hope there are no more workers who quit just now. We're almost done with the bridge, 1.5 to 2 weeks more, but, just like Jiichi, people won't risk their families. I guess, Naruto said, bringing up his hand to form a very familiar hand sign. I will have to help a bit more. Tajuo Kage Bushin no Jutsu. 20 additional Narutos appeared, effectively doubling the workforce at the bridge. It didn't take long for them to spread out on the bridge and help where he could. His lively spirit also affected Tazuna, who only was that more determined to finish the bridge. Same afternoon at the market, Tazuna and Naruto were walking down the main street of the biggest town in the area. In all honesty, it didn't deserve the name town or road. It was a long dust trail where shacks and cracked stone buildings stood along the sides. The people didn't look much better. They were all walking around very carefully, afraid that their life could be stolen at a second's notice. They wore clothes, if you could call it that, which looked to be made up of sacks and mold-infested cloth. The worst were the children. They were at every corner and store opening, begging to just get the tiniest attention and food. It reminded him of the year after he was kicked out of the orphanage, before he had gotten the apartment he was living in now. He shuddered a bit. What is the meaning of this? Tazuna didn't have to look to know what he was talking about. Nami no Kuni have been like this since Gato took over. That man can't be anyone but the devil, Naruto said angrily. I will definitely he. Naruto was interrupted when he felt hands go through his ninja bag. Whoever did it had chosen the absolute worst time to do it. Naruto swirled around to see a middle-aged man. As soon as he caught a glimpse of Naruto's eye, he was scared out of his pants and tried to run away. But Naruto was angry and he had to take it out on somebody. He grabbed the shirt of the man. You do not steal from me, thief, and threw the man down the street, where he continued skirting before he was stopped abruptly by a brick wall. Naruto scoffed and continued after Tazuna, who had walked into a store to look for ingredients for tonight's meal. He wasn't happy with what he saw. It was the same as the street and the town. The shelves were close to empty, with only a few foodstuffs scattered here and there. And they didn't look fresh, quite the opposite. Naruto sighed and became only more determined to see that this country was set free from Gato, and that said man was burned in the deepest pits of hell for what he had done. He continued after Tazuna, who continued out of the store after paying over prices on the scarcely collected wares. They hadn't walked more than a few meters before Naruto felt tucking in his bag again. Not again, he thought as he swirled around, planning to chew out whoever was stupid enough to try and steal from him. He stopped in his tracks as he saw who was standing in front of him, a little girl who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Please, give me, she said, holding her hands out. Naruto blinked a couple of times before going through his bag and found a few pieces of candy. The girl's eyes lit up with joy. She was just about to run off when Naruto stopped her with a smile, squatting down to her level. Hey, what is your name? The girl blushed slightly. Amaya. Naruto kept smiling. Hey Amaya. My name is Naruto. Want to see something cool? He asked, which in response got a tentative nod. He closed his hand together, activating his Shoton powers, making it glow slightly out of the cracks. When he opened it, a miniature figure of a puppy was standing on his hands. The girl went wide-eyed. Naruto just kept smiling and handed the figurine to the girl. Here, you take it. It's a lucky charm. As long as you have it, good things will happen to you. Just believe in it. She reached out and took the dog, inspecting it all over. She looked back at the blonde with tears in her eyes. She bowed deeply to Arigato Naruto Nyasan, she cried out before hugging him deeply. Naruto was taken by surprise but quickly returned the hug. When they were done, she looked at him with big puppy eyes. Will you be back? So can you meet all my friends? I'm sure I will. Just keep an eye out for me, Naruto said with his kind smile on his lips. She nodded and ran into the crowd, surely to show her friends her new toy. That was very kind of you, Tazuna noted. Yeah, they remind me of myself when I was little, Naruto responded before starting to head out of the town. It piqued Tazuna's curiosity, but he could see he wouldn't get more of an answer for now. Evening at Tazuna's house. When Sasuke and Sakura came back to Tazuna's house that evening, they looked extremely exhausted. Naruto raised an eyebrow. It seems Sakura is actually trying. I'm glad she actually listened to me. Naruto smirked at Sasuke. Worked hard, eh team? Sasuke scoffed at him, not having the strength to come with a longer answer. Sakura was just about to come to the defense of her beloved Sasuke-kun when Tsunami's voice sounded from the living room. Dinner is ready. Come and eat. The Konoha genin didn't need any more to be said as they ran as fast as their bodies could carry them to the dinner table. It wasn't a gourmet meal, but it was not bad either at all. They all took their places, broke off the eating chops, and began eating like wolves, Sakura eating like a fine wolf. After dinner, when they had some tea, Sakura was looking around the kitchen and found a picture hanging on the wall. It showed Inari, Tsunami, and Tazuna, and one other person it seemed like. But he was ripped out of it. Ano, why are you hanging a torn picture? It brought all the attention of all the shinobi to the mentioned picture. Inari-kun was watching this during dinner the entire time. This torn part looks like someone intentionally tore away the person who was there, she continued. It silenced the whole room. Finally, Tsunami, who was doing the dishes, spoke up. It's my husband. The shinobi waited for her to continue, not satisfied with the answer, but she didn't. Tazuna spoke up. He was the man known as the hero of this town. He didn't get to say more before Inari left his seat, walking towards the door. Inari, where are you going? Tsunami asked, but he had already left. She walked after him, and when she opened the door, she turned around looking at Tazuna's father. I told you not to talk about him in front of Inari, she said a little harshly before she exited the door. Tazuna sighed deeply. Team 7 was watching him closely. He looked around at all. Inari had a father he wasn't related to. They were very close, like a real father and son. They were a real father and son. He looked back up at the picture, seeing a laughing Inari in the middle. Inari used to laugh a lot back then. But Tazuna began to sob lightly, shocking the shinobi. They had the impression of Tazuna of a man who didn't really show any vulnerable feelings. Well, everyone but Naruto, who had learned some about their client on the bridge. Tazuna bit his cries back. He changed after what happened to his father. His name was Kaiza. Tazuna paused again. The word courage was forever taken away from the people of this island and Inari after that day. Tazuna went on explaining how Inari and Kaiza had met. How he had taught him about living his life, so he didn't regret a thing. He then went about telling them how a big storm had hit the island, breaking the dam, and how Kaiza had saved them all. Then his voice turned into venom as he spoke of how Gato had taken over the island and how Kaiza didn't want to back down. How he was executed in front of the whole town to set an example, and that after that day, Inari was changed. He didn't believe in heroes and courage. He was depressed and cried alone in his room. After he finished, the whole room was quiet. Team 7 had troubled looks on their faces. How horrible it came from Sakura. The others nodded in agreement. Tazuna then looked up at them all with a determined look in his eyes, and that's why I want to build that bridge. For the people of Wave, for Kaiza, and for Inari. I want to break us free from the rule of Gato. I want Inari to be happy again. That determination was also brought up in the shinobi. And we will help you achieve it. We won't let Gato lay a hand on you. Count on it. Naruto declared. Sasuke smirked. You count on it. I'm not going to be outdone by you, Dobe. Hi, we can't let the Wave people suffer anymore, Sakura said. Kakashi took a look at the clock. Guys, I think it's about time to hit the racks. We still have to train you guys hard the next few days to get you ready. You don't want to let Tazuna down, do you? None of the genin did and quickly made their way to bed. The next few days didn't go very differently. Kakashi came and helped guard Tazuna and in the meantime had handed over a scroll on Futon, Rapusho. He had said it would work well with his Rikaku Shuriken and Naruto wasn't one to deny his sensei. Naruto was also making progress on the water balloon exercise, now progressing to the rubber ball exercise. It had taken time to finish the first part of the exercise, only finally completing it when Kakashi had said he had spun it against his natural flow. After that, it went easy. But this next step took so much more power that he hadn't even punctured the ball. Sakura and Sasuke were also progressing, both now able to walk up and down the tree without faltering and just starting to learn to stay still on the surface. It was going slowly, but surely. As for the bridge, it had gone faster with Naruto's clones helping, but more and more workers had quit and only 7 of them remained now, most of them already having lost their families to Gato. They didn't have anything to lose. Naruto had also been back to see Amaya and her friends, telling them stories and of course, making more pretty lucky charms, as they called them. Naruto was starting to grow attached to the children, especially when they all called him Naruto Nyasan. It was at least one thing he was going to miss in Nami. At Tazuna's house, 2 evenings before Zabuza's return. When they came back that evening, the genin were rather battered up, even Naruto, who had been working hard on the rubber ball, and were delighted when they saw another homemade meal was waiting for them. They ate as much as they could to recharge their energy so they could give it all the next day. Tazuna stopped eating and looked up at Kakashi. The bridge is almost complete. It's thanks to you guys. Tsunami looked up from her meal, but don't push yourself so much. The genin just smiled. Tazuna continued. I wanted to ask this before, but why are you still here, even when I lied about the request details? Kakashi folded his hands and closed his eyes. Not doing right when you know it is right is a coward's way. There are no weak soldiers under a valiant commander. They're the teachings of the Yondaime Hokage, our previous Hokage. That's when Inari spoke up about why it caught all the genin attention. Inari stood up and slammed his hand down on the table. Why are you trying so hard to end up dead? You can't bear Gatu's men, even if you train. No matter how hard you try to say those good-looking words, weak people are going to lose against strong people. Naruto glared at that. Shut up. You don't know the first thing about us. That silenced Inari, who were on the verge of tears. Here you are, living a relatively good life. You have a mother that loves and cooks for you, and a grandfather who tries to save this country. And what do? You cry and mope about how bad it is. You don't realize how good you have it compared to other people. Have you seen how the children in the town live? And for that matter, you don't know what it's like to be hated in your own village for something that is out of your control. You don't know what it's like to be beaten and kicked out of shops and forced to go through the garbage for food. You think your life is bad, fine, but don't just sit around and moan about it, do something about it, fight back, don't be a coward. Naruto rose from the table and headed for the door. Sakura went on alert there. Naruto. Where are you going? Out to train. Naruto all but mumbled. And with that Naruto stormed out the front door with tears in his eyes. Inari stormed out the other side of the house, out the back door. The civilians and the genin of Team 7 were shocked by what Naruto had said. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto's life couldn't have been that bad, right? He has to be lying to get attention, Sakura asked. Kakashi shook his head no. Everything he said was true. Naruto was kicked out of the orphanage when he was 4 years old and was forced to live on the streets for 6 months before Samanbu found him and took him to the Hokage. The Hokage gave Naruto an apartment, but he has had to learn everything for himself and was constantly being beaten and kicked out of stores. And that's the down-watered version, he said, shocking everyone in the room. Tazuna looked down on his half-empty plate, so that's what he meant by that they reminded him of himself as a child. It seems to me that they got a good life compared to what he had to live through. Later that night at the docks outside the house, Inari was sitting on the edge of the docks, looking out over the ocean. He could see the bridge his grandfather was trying to build. He heard footsteps behind him, but didn't bother to see who it was. May I join you? A male voice sounded. Inari guessed it was the Konoha Jounin who had arrived a few days earlier. He shrugged. Kakashi walked over to Inari and sat beside him. Naruto didn't say those things out of spite, you know. Inari didn't react, but he continued anyway. He is just stubborn and still has no reaction. He looked over the ocean. We heard about your father from Tazuna-san. Naruto is the same as you in that way, he didn't have a father when he was young. To be truthful, he doesn't know what it feels like to have parents. He also didn't have a single friend growing up. That caught Inari's attention. He looked up at the young Jounin as he continued. However, I have never seen him grow timid, get sulky, or cry. He has always been desperate to make people recognize him. He now looked down on Inari with what Inari could only guess was a smile on his lips. He's able to put his life on the line for that dream. He's probably bored of crying by now. That got Inari thinking, remembering what his father was like. That's why he knows the true meaning of being strong. Just like your father. Naruto might be the one who understands you the most. What Naruto said to you before, those are probably the words he's been telling himself over and over again. Kakashi rose from where he had sat. If anything, just don't hold a grudge against him. He wasn't trying to be mean, and with that said, he went back to the house, leaving Inari to think about what he had heard. The following morning in the forest, are you okay? Hello? Are you there? Naruto's eyes slammed open, surprising the person who had tried to wake him up. Quickly reacting, he jumped up into his taijutsu stance, but relaxed upon seeing that it was an ordinary teenage girl looking at him. He looked around him, finding himself in the same clearing they had been training in the last few days. I must have fallen asleep out here. Haku took a better look at the now obvious ninja in front of her. She noticed his Konoha Hitai-8. He was with Sharingan Kakashi the other day. He must be the one with Shoton. She didn't show her worry, but simply smiled at him. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to surprise you. Naruto smiled back at her. No problem. I didn't mean to jump like that, reflexes you know. She nodded at that. Is that Hitai-8 real? Are you a real shinobi? She asked, completing her act as an unknowing civilian. He grinned back at that, pushing his chest up. Yes. I am a shinobi from Konoha. I will protect her with my life. The girl giggled at the way Naruto was acting. Naruto looked at her again. By the way, what are you doing out here so early? Picking herbs, she answered nicely as she turned away, resuming looking through the plants on the ground. Herbs? Naruto asked. She turned her head and smiled at him. That's right. It's to cure injuries and illness. One of my friends has gotten hurt, so I'm out here looking for herbs to cure him. I can help you. I still have some time before I have to be back to breakfast, he said, helping her go through the plants. He had gotten a bit of knowledge of herbs from his reading, but it really hadn't been anything he had read up on. They picked through the plants for a while, then the girl spoke up again. By the way, what are you doing out here so early? He threw her one of his big smiles. Training. And why are you training? I want to become stronger. But you look strong enough already. No, I want to become stronger and stronger. She was silent for a time, resuming picking through the forest floor. Are you doing it for someone else? Or for yourself? Well, I think when I just graduated I was doing it for myself. But then Iruka-sensei acknowledged me. And so did Kakashi-sensei, and Sakura-chan, and I guess Sasuke-team did too. He paused. I think now I'm doing it just as much for them as I'm doing it for myself. She looked up at him. That's good. I believe a person is able to become truly strong when they wish to protect someone they cherish. Naruto got a thoughtful look in his eyes. I think you're right. I understand that. She nodded at him. She took her basket, now filled with herbs. Thank you. I think you will become strong. She began walking out of the clearing. By the way, I'm a boy, she said, walking away, leaving Naruto stunned, but he is beautiful. She can't be a boy. You're lying, he said before he could stop himself. She stammered. She sighed. Yes, I am. Why would you lie about something like that? Because of Gato. His men aren't always polite. Naruto was disgusted by that. Don't worry. I won't tell anyone. She smiled back at him. Goodbye. I really hope I don't have to fight you when the time comes. Naruto yawned loudly and stretched his arms above his head. He scratched his eyes and looked around in the room. Sasuke and Sakura were still asleep. It didn't come to a surprise, as the whole week he had woken before them. He was used to getting up early to train and to get through the village as early as possible when fewer people were on the streets. He shook the thoughts from his head and sneaked out of the room, heading for the bathroom. While he was doing his business, he took a look out of the window. He could see the first rays of the sun touch the horizon in the distance. One thing he loved and hated about Nami no Kuni was the flat land and ocean. You could see for miles and miles without anything disturbing your view. He loved that he could see the sunrise so early, since in Konoha you would have to wait at least a few hours for the sun to rise above the small mountains and the forest of Hai no Kuni. But then again, he hated it because you could see so long. One part of being shinobi is hiding in the shadows, and being from Konoha, where the forest is everywhere, he almost felt exposed. He breathed in deeply and went on to brush his teeth. He looked at his reflection in the little mirror hanging on the wall and took a deep breath. So, it's today, huh? He asked. No one in particular. Today is probably the day Zabuza will return, and it's highly likely that he will have that fake hunter Nin with him. I have no chance of defeating Zabuza, so I must keep his companion occupied. I have to protect my friends, but it still scares me. Today I am going to fight another shinobi. I may have to kill. Naruto turned on the water and splashed water in his face. I am doing it for my comrades. If I have to kill, then I will do it to save them. I will do it for them, so they can live. When Naruto was done, he made his way down to the kitchen. He was surprised to see that Tsunami already up and cooking. He glanced at the clock and, as he thought, it was 6:13 a.m. He sat down at the table. Good morning, Tsunami-san. Tsunami almost jumped 2 feet in the air and spun around with a knife in her hand. Her stance relaxed as she saw who it was. Oh, it's just you, Naruto-kun. Sorry for that, but I didn't expect anyone up yet. Naruto smiled awkwardly while scratching the back of his head. Sorry about that. Normally I'm out training in the morning, but since it's possible I might be needed today, I'm not going. Tsunami smiled at him and resumed cooking. Naruto walked over to the sink and took a glass of water and walked out to the pier to sit and watch the sunrise. He couldn't see much more because of the thick morning fog in the distance. That was one of the reasons they didn't go to the bridge earlier. Zabuza could by himself already summon up a lot of fog, so they didn't even want to try him out when he had the natural occurring fog on his side too. Oh, Naruto, are you already up? Kakashi's voice came from behind him. He glanced over his shoulder to see the silver-haired Jounin reading his book. Yeah, I couldn't sleep anymore. I have woken up this early for as long as I can remember. Now it's training, before it was to get away before the village awoke. Kakashi walked over beside Naruto and squatted down beside him. I haven't really seen you around since the evening before yesterday. When I left for the bridge yesterday you hadn't come back. Sorry about that, Naruto said, still looking out over the ocean. I needed time to think. And now? Still thinking about Kaka-sensei. Do you know why he chose me? Kakashi knew what Naruto was asking. Why had the Yondaime chosen him over so many other children? I can't exactly say. Don't worry, Naruto, it was because he was your father. It's not my place to reveal it. He pondered for a few more seconds. Naruto, you bear a burden not many others can understand or even start to comprehend. You have been through much that no child should have been through. But you have survived. I believe the Yondaime chose you for a reason, that he believes in you. You are Yondaime's legacy. And you live up to his name. As far as I know, you haven't let him down so far, have you? You still keep that beast under control. Naruto nodded. It wasn't yet the final answer, but it would suffice for now. Kakashi rose from beside Naruto. Well, let's get inside. Wouldn't be any good if you got sick. Naruto scoffed. Kaka-sensei, I have never been sick. Sure, I have had broken bones and so on, but I have never been sick, and I'm sure you know why. Nonetheless, Naruto got up and got inside. 3 hours later, Kakashi looked up from his book and around the people around the table. Sasuke and Sakura had gotten down to the kitchen about an hour ago, and Tazuna and Inari came down about 20 minutes ago. There hadn't been much talk, everyone knew what was likely to happen today. He closed his book and cleared his throat, getting everyone's attention. We all know what is going to happen today, but we haven't really talked about how to execute this. We of course need people around you, Tazuna-san, but we also need to protect your family, namely you, Inari-san, and Tsunami-san. Since you can't go to the bridge for obvious reasons, we need to leave someone behind to take guard you. Tazuna and his family had rather worried looks on their faces, but relaxed some when they saw the determined expressions of Team 7, especially that of Naruto. He looked straight back at Kakashi. I have to make this mission a success. This isn't about my first mission being a success anymore, it's about freeing the people of Nami no Kuni, freeing Tazuna and his family, and freeing Amaya and her friends. I can't fail all of them. Naruto pondered about what Kakashi had said before speaking up. Kaka-sensei, I think I got an idea. I should stay behind to guard Tsunami-san and Inari. Tazuna nodded, satisfied. He knew that, if Naruto was guarding his family, they were in safe hands. The blonde brand had earned his respect from Tazuna. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. I see. What makes you come to that conclusion? Well, I was thinking that I would stay here with them and send a Kage Bushin with you guys. That way we have a way of communicating with each other. I can keep you updated if anything is to happen here, and you can call for me if it should come to that. Wait, what? All looks turned to Sasuke. Dobe, how are we supposed to keep contact with just a Kage Bunshin? The blonde genin smirked at his comrade. That's easy. When a Kage Bunshin is dispelled, no matter the way it is dispelled, the knowledge it has gained will return to the user and any other clones the user should have made. So if I want to send a message to you guys, I just make a clone and make it dispel. Before Sasuke could answer, it was Kakashi who spoke up. Very well about Naruto, it's a plan I can accept. So Sasuke, Sakura, and I, with the Kage Bunshin of Naruto, will guard Tazuna-san on the bridge, while Naruto will stay here and guard Tsunami-san and Inari-san. If anything happens on the bridge or here, we will let the respective part know by sending a message through the Kage Bunshin. Team 7 nodded, showing they understood. Good then, we leave in 15 minutes, so you better get ready. We should get to the bridge around 10 a.m. Sasuke and Sakura rose from the table and went upstairs to get their gear ready, while Tazuna seemed to speed up eating. Naruto sat at the kitchen table reading his book on Genjutsu. Tsunami was currently washing the dishes from the breakfast, and Inari was sitting beside Naruto looking really bored. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke had left with Tazuna some half hour ago, so they should be at the bridge in 10 to 15 minutes. Naruto didn't let it show, but he was actually worried about them. He would have liked to have gone with them to the bridge, but this was the best way for them to keep contact. And if it came to it, he could be at the bridge in 10 minutes. The only reason it was taking so long with the rest of his team was because they had to go at a civilian pace. If they were going at the normal pace, well, normal for a genin team, they could probably be in Konoha in a day, instead of the 4 days it takes at civilian pace. He was brought out of his attention when Inari spoke. Say, Naruto Nai-chan, how again can you know if anyone is coming? Naruto didn't know when Inari had started calling him Nai-chan, but he liked it, the same with the kids in town. He looked up from his book. It's rather simple really. You heard what I said about Kage Bunshin at breakfast, right? Inari nodded. Good, by the way, please keep it a secret. It's one of Konoha's Kenjutsu. While none of the other villages can copy it, they can take precaution if they know some of its secrets. Sure thing. I won't tell anybody, Inari said, smiling. Naruto ruffled the boy's hair, much to the boy's dismay. Naruto laughed lightly at that. Good then. Anyway, back on topic, I have placed about 20 clones around the house, hidden of course, so if they see anyone who shouldn't be here, they disperse, and I will know. That's so cool. Inari exclaimed. Naruto nodded at him, before getting back to reading. He heard a sigh from Inari. Can't you do something else? You know, it's rather boring just to wait around. And it's not like I can go outside and play. Naruto smiled again. He remembered himself being that impatient and wanting stuff to happen all the time. Okay then Inari, what do you? He stopped mid-sentence when he got feedback from one of his clones around the house. Two objects were moving towards the house at a fast pace. The clone hadn't gotten a good look at them. Nai-chan, what's the matter? Inari asked, a little worried. Tsunami had also seen this and had stopped doing the dishes. Both of you go upstairs and hide. They looked at him without moving now, Naruto said with a voice that said they left no room for argument. Tsunami went over to Inari, took him by the hand, and headed upstairs to hide. When they had disappeared up the stairs, Naruto sat down again and took his book up. It didn't take long for the two figures to make it to the house and burst in through the door. Hey, where the hell are they? One voice asked rather loudly. How should I know? Oi, there's a kid here. I bet you know where they are, eh? Naruto finally looked up from his book, taking the two young men in. There were two, as he had known. One of them had a blue sweat-like shirt, wore a hood, and had tattoos, and his eyes. The other had a bare chest. His right arm had a tattoo going up from his arm to the middle of his chest, and he wore an eye patch on his right eye. Above his left he had a scar. They both wore katanas. Just from looking by the way they were standing he could tell they weren't shinobi, they were simple thugs hired to do the easy work. Do you two mind? I'm trying to read what Naruto said, trying to get them to lose their cool. It worked. What the hell? Who do you think you are? The one wearing a hood yelled. Calm down. Can't you see he is trying to get you to lose your cool? You're quite an idiot, you know, the bare-chested saying. What did you say? I'm not. Let's just get this over with. Kid, where is the woman and the child? The bare-chested asked, looking at Naruto. He got a sweat drop when he saw Naruto had gone back to reading, apparently not giving them any attention at all. Hey brat. I asked you something. Naruto sighed deeply as you said, let's just get this over with. Naruto got up and got into his stance, creating two crystal tanto in the process. The two thugs hesitated a bit after seeing their opponent creating crystal out of nothing. It didn't last long as the bare-chested charged head first with his companion right after him. Naruto didn't go out of his academy stance, and he easily dodged the first punch from the bare-chested. As soon as he had squatted, the other came with a kick which he simply blocked. This was child play compared to the training he had undergone. He grabbed the leg in front of him and quickly twisted it, making the hood-wearing thug spin and fall. The bare-chested saw this as an opportunity and clapped his hands together in a fist and brought them hard down on Naruto's head. Instead of the crack he was expecting to hear, he heard nothing. Naruto had grabbed his right wrist and wasn't letting go. Naruto looked with a smirk at his opponent as he tightened and twisted his grip, resulting in a nauseous crack. Naruto's opponent cried out in pain and retracted his hand as soon as Naruto let go. The hood-wearing thug got up and together with his companion, they stepped a few steps back, looking at the blonde brat in front of them, who had fended them off without breaking a sweat. Naruto got up from his squat and simply dusted his pants off. Now, I think we have played long enough. Behind the two thugs, a vase and a chair transformed into two more Narutos, who quickly thickened their crystal armor in their hands and hit the thugs in their heads. They went out as soon as they had been hit. Naruto shook his head with a smile. Did Gato really think he could kidnap Tazuna's family with thugs? He should know about us. He nodded to his two clones, making them dispel, effectively passing what had happened here to his clone on the bridge. He tied the two thugs up and went upstairs to find Tsunami and Inari hiding in a closet. Tsunami looked worried at him. Is it safe? Naruto showed her a reassuring smile. Yeah, it's safe. Gato only sent two thugs. As if they could take a shinobi down. Inari grinned, of course. No one can take you down, Naruto Nai-chan. Now that isn't true, Naruto laughed. There's a lot of. Naruto stopped as he got feedback from a clone. It was the one he had sent with the rest of his team. They were in trouble. Sakura-chan. A few minutes earlier with remainder of Team 7. Meanwhile, Kakashi's group had made their way to the bridge. They couldn't believe the sight that met them. Every worker was lying either dead or dying. Tazuna stared in disbelief. What is this? He looked over at the workers. What's wrong? What happened? Kakashi was showing no sign of emotion as he looked over the bridge. Just as we thought. He has returned. Mist began to fill the bridge, confirming what he thought. Team, he's coming. Protect Tazuna-san. They all quickly took their positions, going into defensive poses. Kakashi-sensei, this is his Karigakur no Jutsu, isn't it? Sakura asked, but got no answer. They were all waiting for Zabuza to show himself. Sorry to keep you waiting, Kakashi. And you're still carrying those kids. Zabuza's voice sounded as Sasuke began to tremble. He's shaking again. How pitiful, Zabuza mocked. Within a second of that remark, the group was surrounded by 7 water clones. Sasuke smirked, and I'm shaking with excitement. Naruto's Cage Bunshin sighed. It's just like you to play the cool act. Let's go, Sasuke. One of the water clones was about to swipe with his sword when Naruto and Sasuke went for it. With a blur of speed, they ran around to the different clones and swiped them with their kunai. A second later they all burst into water. As soon as they were done, the clone got the information from the clones at the house. He didn't take his eyes off Zabuza as he spoke to his team. Gatu sent 2 thugs to kidnap Tsunami and Inari, as we thought he would. Boss took care of them rather easily, and they're safe now. He plans on taking them somewhere else, probably to Jiichi's house or something. Kakashi nodded. I think it would be best for you to dispel and tell Naruto to hurry and come here. I have a feeling we're going to need him. Naruto's clone nodded and dispelled. From across the bridge, Zabuza raised his eyebrow. So he was a clone? Haku, watch out, he can come from anywhere and at any time. I know you have trained a lot this week for this fight against his Shoton, but don't let your guard down. It only takes one slip to give the enemy the upper hand. Of course, Zabuza-dan, Haku said with an emotionless voice. Nothing like what he normally talked like. Kakashi looked over his team. Sakura, get close and protect Azuna. Sasuke, you will have to keep Zabuza's friend occupied. I will take care of Zabuza. The group immediately got into the different positions they were given. Zabuza saw the opposing group getting ready. I don't think we have more time for chit-chat. Haku, you got first. Hi, she said, as she began spinning around making her way to the Konoha shinobi. Sasuke looked in awe at the speed of his opponent as he brought up his kunai. She was aiming for one of the nerves in his chest when he blocked. Zabuza saw it and raised his eyebrow. Oh? He was able to catch up to her speed. The 2 shinobi looked at each other, trying to estimate the other's strength. Their kunai clashed again and again, neither being able to get through the other's guard. Haku spun around fast, trying to get some more force into his strike, but Sasuke just did the same, getting the same result. They stopped, trying to overpower the other rather than compete in speed. Then Haku said, I don't want to kill you, but you won't back off, right? Sasuke smirked at his opponent. What? Are you stupid? As I thought, but you won't be able to keep up with me for my next move, she said, keeping up the power struggle. And I'm already 2 steps ahead of you. Really? And which steps would that be? Sasuke asked with a smirk and a raised eyebrow. The first one is the water on the ground, Haku said, keeping her voice even. And the second? Sasuke asked. And the second one, she continued, is that I'm keeping one of your arms busy. Therefore, you can only take and block my attacks. While keeping Sasuke's arm busy, she brought up her other hand, starting to go through one-handed seals. Sasuke's eyes widened. What? He's creating seals with one hand. He could only stand there and do nothing. If he tried to back off, then his opponent would stab him down. If he stayed, he would most likely get hit by whatever technique Haku was casting. He was trapped. Haku stopped at a half-ram seal Sensatsu Sushin, she said, stomping with one foot in the ground. All the water around them flew into the air, forming a dome-like shape around the 2. As soon as the dome was shaped, the water started forming into needles, covering every escape route. Sasuke gulped. So this is it? I'm going to end like this? Without even having a chance to catch up at Itachi? The people around the 2 fighters could only look by. Kakashi was, to say it mildly, surprised. One-handed seals? I've only ever seen that in veterans, and it's not something you can learn. You either can or can't do it. And the latter is the most common. That boy really is something. I have to do something. With that thought, Kakashi charged towards the 2, aiming to get Sasuke out of the needle dome. He was, however, stopped midway by a Zabuza slashing with his decapitation sword and was forced to dodge it unless he wanted to lose a head. Zabuza shook his head laughing lightly, causing chills down Sakura's back. Now Kakashi, it wouldn't be nice to interrupt someone's fighting, would it now? Kakashi looked frustrated at Zabuza and thereafter Sasuke, come on Naruto. We need you. Sasuke looked around the dome, trying to find a way to escape, but all escape routes were blocked. He glanced over his shoulder to see if Kakashi could help him, only to see him in a showdown against Kakashi. He turned his vision back on his opponent. The water needles began flying towards the two, and Haku jumped back to avoid getting hit. The sound of the needles hitting their target sounded as the place they had fought was covered up in vapor. Haku didn't move out of her defensive position as it slowly was blown away by the light ocean breeze. What she saw surprised her. Sasuke was inside a prism made up of thin red crystal. She narrowed her eyes, so he has shown up. This is what I have trained for the last week. The other two won't be a problem, but the Shoton user. Now where is he? Her question was answered as she heard a voice behind her. It came from Naruto, who looked a little winded. He looked over the field. Haku was standing a few meters from Sasuke, who was now inside his crystal prism. Kakashi and Zabuza were standing in front of each other a couple of meters from Sasuke, not looking like they had started yet. And finally Sakura was standing guard in front of Tazuna all the way back on the bridge. Haku rose from her crouch without turning towards Naruto. So you have finally decided to show up? Naruto jumped over to Sasuke, releasing his prism in the process. Sasuke looked up at his blonde teammate and nodded appreciatively. Naruto, seeing that Sasuke was okay, stood up and faced Haku. Sorry if I kept you waiting. I had to take care of the thugs your boss hired to kidnap Tazuna's family. Did he really think he could kidnap them with thugs? Surely you have told him about us. Haku didn't answer but began going through seals, causing Naruto to go into a defensive stance. Haku finished and stomped on the ground against Sensatsusushima. Water again rose from the ground before forming into needles and shooting towards the two boys. Haku was shocked when all the needles stopped only a few meters from Naruto, who was standing with a hand raised towards the needles. Slowly at first, but going faster and faster, the needles crystallized with Naruto as center. Naruto smirked. Jutsu like that isn't going to work on me. As he talked, the needles combined and started forming the Rikaku Shuriken. With a flick of a finger they flew towards Haku, who could only parry and dodge. Naruto was impressed that she didn't get hit once. Impressive, he nodded approvingly. Haku was watching him through her mask. He can crystallize my Suiton, but how does he fare against a material that's already a crystal? She began going through another set of seals. Hyoten, Senbon no Hari. Naruto was shocked to see the water around his opponent frozen over before breaking into pieces and forming. He didn't let it show as he looked at his opponent. I see you have a Kekkei Genkai too. But seriously, what's with the needles? He didn't get an answer as the ice fired towards him. He planned to crystallize them but was surprised at how hard it was. They got closer and he had only crystallized a little over a tenth of them. They were too close for comfort as he realized he couldn't crystallize them all before they hit. He looked over his shoulder to see Sasuke up and about again. Sasuke, he has a Kekkei Genkai, go and protect Azuna Ajisan, and I will take care of this. Naruto said as they began to dodge all the needles. There were too many and they got scratches here and there. Sasuke glared at his teammate. In no way. I'm a Uchiha elite. No way a clan less dope can do better than me. Sasuke, remove that pole from your ass. Maybe if you had your Sharingan, yet you could do it, but you don't. So let the clan less dope handle it. I should be able to keep him busy with my Shoton. As they spoke, the mist began to thicken. Crap, Kaka-sensei and Zabuza must have started their fight. They could hear their teacher and Zabuza clash here and there. Naruto took a look at Sasuke. He didn't look like he was going to Tazuna. He sighed dejectedly. Fine, stay, but don't get in the way. Sasuke was still glaring at Naruto, but resigned. Fine. Naruto turned towards Haku. Now, shall we? You're not going to give up either, are you? Haku asked from his position. Naruto shook his head. Sorry, no can do. Wouldn't look good on paper that my first higher ranking mission was a failure and I can't let all these people down. I didn't think so. Senbon no Hari, she said again, forming the ice needles. Naruto knew he couldn't crystallize them, so he had to block them. He quickly went through the right seals, Kesso, Rikaku Shuriken, Ranbu. The ice and crystal shuriken clashed mid-air, causing several hundred clangs to travel over the bridge. None of the two wanted to give in and kept throwing projectiles at the other. At last they could see that neither of them would win like this, and Naruto stopped only to dodge the last few from Haku by jumping to the side. They looked at each other, trying to determine what the other was going to do, both standing in their respective poses. Finally Haku made 2 more ice and charged. Naruto made his crystal tantos and charged as well. Sasuke looked from the sideline and marveled at the speed and power. It was clear to him that Haku had held back during their clash and that Naruto never really showed his true powers. It was true that it had been a few weeks since they had fought Kakashi in the bell test, but no one could get that much stronger, that fast could they? Sasuke got angry. He could still remember the dead last in their class. Where did he go? Where the hell did this Naruto come from? Shoton couldn't be the only answer. He wanted to show that he could fight too, but he could tell just by looking at Haku and Naruto that he was no match for either of them. Sure, he could probably get a hit in here and there, but in the end he would lose. Naruto dodged another swipe from Haku's ice and tried to retaliate by slashing at her gut, but no luck. Haku brought her mother down and blocked. Betraying their size, the ice was both strong and durable, surely because of the chakra it took to make them. It's probably because of all the chakra in them that I can't crystallize fast enough. I bet with a lot of training it wouldn't matter much to me, but as I am now it simply takes too much concentration, Naruto theorized as he ducked under a kick. He tried to grab it to twist it like he had done earlier, but no luck as Haku conjured up a few and threw them at him, forcing him to jump back a few meters to avoid them. They looked at each other again, gaining their breath. They weren't winded or anything, but they knew that this fight would take some time. From what they could tell, they were as strong as the other. This battle was only going to end when either the other slipped up or by the one who had the most stamina. They charged again. With Kakashi and Zabuza, Kakashi was holding up his kunai in a defensive stance. Zabuza was totally controlling in this battle, no doubt about that. His Sharingan wasn't of much use as the fog was too thick. He was covered in small cuts here and there, the biggest being in his hand. Zabuza had stabbed him with a strange blade as soon as he had tried to uncover his Sharingan. After that, Zabuza had disappeared into the mist, showing why he was called Demon of Kiri. His abilities with the silent killing method was frightening. The only reason he was still here was because of his Sharingan. He could dodge just enough for Zabuza to miss any of his vital areas. He was just hoping that Naruto and Sasuke were doing better. He could still hear sounds from another battle, so he was positive that they were still alive. Well Kakashi, it looks like you don't look so good. It came from Zabuza in the mist. You're worried about me, Zabuza? That's cute. You don't have to, I'm more than okay, Kakashi said, hiding his worry. Really? I guess we will have to do something about that, won't we? Zabuza said, finishing with an evil laugh. Kakashi tightened up his stance and awaited a new barrage of assaults. With Naruto and Haku, Naruto forced Haku back with a barrage of slashes. Haku jumped back, throwing a few in the process, and landed a few meters away. Naruto simply blocked them. They were in a stare showdown again. None of them had gained any injuries after they had started their fight. Naruto had gotten a few scratches from the ice at the start, but they were healed now, thanks to the old fuzzball. After that he activated his crystal armor. He looked over his opponent. She didn't have any scratches either. But Naruto knew he had gotten through her guard a couple of times. He took a closer look and saw cold air forming around her. Now it made sense, I see. So you also have armor, just like my Kesso no Yoroi, Naruto said, staying in his stance. Indeed I have. Kori no Yoroi encases me in a thin sheet of chakra-infused ice. It will block all edged attacks, but the most powerful, Haku replied. Naruto nodded mentally to himself. It's the same principles as my crystal armor. If we weren't enemies, I'm sure we could learn a lot from each other. It does make sense though, ice is a crystal, a different crystal than my crystals, but a crystal nonetheless. He paused and looked over at his opponent. He didn't know why, but he had an odd feeling that they had met before. Well, other than the brief encounter when his team had fought Zabuza the first time. Haku began going through seals. She knew that they weren't getting anywhere with Taijutsu. She concentrated a lot of ice chakra and focused it in her lungs before exhaling Hyoten. Nameterito. A deep blue-colored wind flew from her mouth and headed for Naruto. Naruto saw this and knew he couldn't get hit. He quickly went through his own seals and stomped on the ground Kishin Nakab. A thick crystal wall grew from the concrete of the bridge, defending Naruto from the blue wind. The wind hit hard, and the wall was under strain, but it held. The wind split and went to either side of the wall and continued like that. Naruto, seeing the attack, shattered the wall. Everywhere the wind had hit, a thick layer of ice was present on the ground. He took a look at his opponent. She didn't even look affected by using such a powerful attack. It was true he wouldn't either, but he had a demon inside him to help him with that. Getting over it, Naruto decided to attack while he had the chance. He gathered a lot of Shoton chakra in his hand and slammed it into the bridge. Shoton, a Muatari no jutsu. Blue crystals shot up from the ground, making their way towards Haku. The Kunoichi began jumping back to avoid the attack. She was taken aback by the speed of the attack. She saw that she couldn't run from it and went through Seal's Hyoten, Namita Rito. She slammed her fists down on the bridge and her own spikes began to form. The two attacks moved closer and closer until ice clashed with crystal. The force that two attacks hit with was enough to tremble the big bridge. Naruto and Haku had to concentrate chakra at their feet to not lose their foothold. Enough. I guess I will have to use one of my strongest attacks, Naruto said, and began going through a great deal of Seal's Shoten, Hashokoryu. From the water behind him, a great crystal dragon rose. It danced around the air as it awaited Naruto's command. It wasn't anything near as big as either Kakashi's or Zabuza's water dragons had been, but it was decent enough for a Genin, or even a Chunin. I guess so, Haku said, going through her own Seal's Hyoten, Rito Ryu. She cried as three ice dragons rose behind her. Naruto's sweat dropped. Of course, she also knows that kind of thing. Isn't there anything I can do to get the upper hand? He thought as the two dragons began attacking, making crystal and ice showering down on Naruto and Haku. With Kakashi and Zabuza, Kakashi looked worriedly in the direction of where all the battle sounds were coming. He was starting to get a little worried. It hadn't been nice sounds that had come from that direction, and a few moments ago the whole section of the bridge had trembled. And now he heard roars of big beasts, and even through the thick mist he could see shadows clashing. It's some student you have, Kakashi, to be able to stand up against Haku, Zabuza's voice sounded. Kakashi tried to determine the origin of the voice. The feeling is mutual. Naruto is most likely the strongest genin in Konoha. And if not, he is the strongest of his year, Kakashi replied, while keeping his worry hidden. He couldn't afford to show any weakness now. He had come up with a strategy to get Zabuza. Now all he needed was to wait. I don't know about you, but I would like to see this fight, so let's finish this, Zabuza said, before appearing from the mist with his blade, raised for a slash. Let it slash him slightly in the stomach, making blood splatter out on his opponent. Zabuza grinned before disappearing into the mist again. I agree that, Zabuza, Kakashi said, by keeping the pain back by sheer willpower. It's time we end this. The next will be the last. Kakashi brought out a scroll from his flak jacket, smeared blood on it, and began a ritual-like process. Is that so? I can't wait to see what it. He was interrupted when an ear-shattering roar reverted through the mist, followed by what sounded like crystal shattering. With Sasuke had tried his best to keep watching Haku and Naruto, but they were so fast. There were moments when he thought they had slowed down, but he brushed it off as his imagination. Finally, he took Naruto's advice and made his way to Tazuna and Sakura. There was no way he could help Naruto. He could hear the roars of the dragons and the clashes they had, but ignored it as well as he could and continued. Soon enough, he saw Sakura still standing in the same place in front of Tazuna. Her face lit up with joy for a second before it showed fear. Sasuke. What's wrong with your eyes? Sasuke looked dumbstruck. What do you mean? There's nothing wrong with them. But Sakura said, not sure if she should tell her. Sasuke, what's wrong? They're red. Sasuke's eyes widened in excitement as he looked down in a puddle. And sure enough, his eyes were red with one tomo in his left eye and two in his right eye. He had the Sharingan. Before he could tell Sakura what had happened, a shattering roar sounded from where Naruto and Haku were fighting, followed by a crystal shattering sound. Sakura and Tazuna both looked worried in the direction it had come from. Tazuna was the first to say, what the hell is happening? It sounds like they're tearing my bridge apart. Sakura seemed to think the same. Sasuke looked away from the where Naruto and Haku was and looked seriously at the two in front of him. It's Naruto. Sakura was shocked. She had thought it was Kakashi and Zabuza. She looked away from Sasuke and looked in the direction Naruto was. He may be a baka and annoying at times, but he was her teammate. She clutched her hands together. Naruto, please be careful. With Naruto and Haku. Naruto was standing a couple of meters from his opponent. They were both starting to pant. They had used a lot of chakra. Naruto still had about 40% left. This had been a lot harder than he had thought. Haku looked at her opponent through her mask. I can't go on like this much longer. I have to use it. She began gathering what chakra she had. I'm sorry, but this can't go on much longer. I have to defeat you. There's no doubt that you're strong for Genin, perhaps even a Chunin, but it ends here. No one has ever beaten my next Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes narrowed. How do you know my name? It isn't something I tell everyone. Naruto thought about for a second. Well, not anyone not from the village. He took a real close look at his opponent and his eyes widened in surprise as he recognized her. It's you. You from the forest. Haku stared through her mask for a few seconds, pondering if she should reveal herself. She sighed deeply and took off her mask. Naruto stared in disbelief, but why? Why would you work for someone like Zabuza? Haku gave Naruto a friendly smile. He saved me. Do you know about Kiri and its civil war? Naruto nodded. He remembered reading about it. Most of the population had developed an irrational fear of the families with Kekkei Genkai after the Second Great Shinobi War. They had all but hunted the clans with Kekkei Genkai. It struck Naruto where it hurt, since he had a Kekkei Genkai. He remembered being really happy about living in Konoha. They loved their Kekkei Genkai. If you want convincing, just look at the Hyuga clan or the Uchiha clan. They were some of the most influential clans in Konoha, even the Uchiha after being massacred. Haku continued. My full name is Yuki Haku. My clan has the ability to control ice, or Hyoten, as it's known as. We're not a very big clan, and we haven't supported any of the Mizukage there have been, and thus have not participated in any of the wars. But that didn't matter. They went after us too. My mother changed her name. She married my father without telling him, and they had me. She paused to let it sink in. I was 4 when I first found out about my abilities. I showed my mom. I thought she would be so proud of me. But instead she hit me and told me to never do it again. But it was too late. My father had already found out. He gathered a mob and killed my mom in front of me. Then they went for me. I can't remember much after that. One thing I do remember was an ice spike that went through my father. I figured I killed him. Again she paused and looked over the ocean. I wandered for months through the roads of Kiri. No one cared enough to stop and ask if I was okay. We were in a civil war and one only looked out for oneself. That was until Zabuza found me. He took me in, he cared for me, and he trained me. That was when his dream became my dream. I want to free Kiri. I want us to be one again. Naruto looked at her with pity as she looked over the ocean. Why did we have to be enemies? She looked back at Naruto with a determined look. If you won't back down, I will have to make you. She raised her hands in a seal. Naruto had never seen Makam Heimshim. A blue aura began to emit from her. Naruto noticed it was the same color as the Hyoten, Namita Rito she had used earlier, and readied himself. Around him ice began to shoot up from the ground, forming mirrors. Before he could do anything about it, he was inside a dome of ice mirrors. There were 21, 12 remained at ground level, 8 floated above the first 12 and angled toward the ground, and the final mirror was above the rest and facing the ground. Naruto heard footsteps and faced Haku, who was slowly making her way to a mirror, and stepped inside. Now she is 21. You have now lost, Naruto. There is nothing you can do but give up. I already told you that I can't do what. Naruto said determinedly. Have you seen what people in this country live like? How do children beg for food just to survive the day? I am fighting for all of them. You are fighting for Gatu, the one that caused this. So I will win this, I will defeat you, and I will help free this nation from Gatu's grasp. Haku looked a little sad. Very well then, she said, as she raised her. Then you will die, and with that she threw needles from all the mirrors faster than you could see. With Kakashi and Zabuza, Kakashi finished the ritual and slammed the scroll into the ground. Kakashi walked over to Zabuza to find him impaled on the ground by dogs, biting his arms, legs, and ribs. You can't escape this. Now, release it. Zabuza tried to find a way out of the mess when he felt a cold chill and smirked at Kakashi. Sure. You want to see the demise of your student, won't you? He said as he released it. The fog dispersed almost immediately. Kakashi was stunned to see a big dome of ice mirrors with Naruto in the middle. He didn't look like he had any injuries, but he looked exhausted, way more than Kakashi had ever seen him. And every now and then he was barraged with needles. They bounced harmlessly off his crystal armor, but it wouldn't last forever. He was about to go to help him when Naruto looked him straight in the eye. He got the message and stayed where he was. He was just about to ask Zabuza when he answered it's Haku's clan secret Makam Heimshim. No one has ever escaped or defeated it. Even I would have trouble with it. Kakashi looked away from Zabuza and glanced over at Tazuna, thankful to see him unharmed, and saw Sasuke and Sakura guarding him. They all had worried looks on their faces and they stared at Naruto in the dome. With Naruto and Haku, Naruto had tried almost everything, but he couldn't break out of the dome. There was one more thing he could try, but it would leave him with almost no chakra, and it wasn't even sure to work. It was a new thing he had been working on, a last resort. He was brought out of his chain of thoughts when he was hit with another barrage of. He looked at Haku. He wasn't in every mirror anymore. He was also low on chakra. Maybe, just maybe, it will work. She is also low on chakra. Naruto thought only one way to find out. But I must go through a lot of seals. I just hope my armor can hold off just for a little more time. With that thought, Naruto began going through a lot of seals. Haku saw this. What is he trying to do? I can't let him do it. I had to stop him, and she began bombarding him with needles. Slowly, but surely his armor began to crack. Naruto sped up the seals as his armor began cracking more and more. Just as Haku was about to throw the thing that would have destroyed his armor, Naruto finished his preparation and gathered his remaining chakra. Everyone present looked in awe as a small pink ball began to form above Naruto's chest. Naruto squinted in concentration before crying Shoton, Kesso Jundo. The small ball expanded and encased the whole dome before dispersing. First nothing happened, but then with Naruto as center, everything the blast wave had touched crystallized. Within a few seconds the section of the bridge was fully crystal, even the mirrors. Haku had just enough time to jump out of the mirrors after using the last of her chakra, trying to prevent them from breaking. As soon as she was out, Naruto went through a few seals, effectively using the last of his chakra. Shoton, Baningu Kazoku, and crystal chains separated from the crystallized ground and tied Haku up. With that done, Naruto shattered the mirrors and returned the bridge to normal. When he was done, he was on one knee. Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna were by his side fast. Tazuna grinned widely at him. Good job, brat. That was some use there at last. I'm just glad you could return the bridge to normal. Naruto grinned back at Tazuna as Sakura fuzzed over him to see if he was injured. But thanks to his crystal armor, which he couldn't hold up anymore, all he suffered was being low on chakra. They were about to walk over to Kakashi and Zabuza when someone clapped. At the end of the unfinished bridge were standing Gato and about 50 men. Zabuza, you dog. I knew you couldn't do it. Well, good riddance. I wasn't planning on paying you anyway. Zabuza glared at Gato. Kakashi, it seems our disagreement is over. Kakashi didn't take his eyes off Gato and his men. Yeah, it seems like he said, and dispelled the dogs and freed Zabuza. He nodded at Naruto, who did the same to Haku. Kakashi looked over at his team, Zabuza and Haku. The only ones capable of fighting right now were Sasuke and Sakura, and there was no way they could take 50 men down, no matter how strong the enemy were. Gato looked at two of the men beside him. Well, what are you waiting for? Kill Tazuna. Kill them all. One of the men he had spoken to. What about the prettier Zed over there? He asked with a perverse grin. You can have her, just kill the rest of them, Gato responded. That seemed to excite the men. You got it, boss. The two went through seals, quickly making it obvious that they were Shinobi Suiton, Mizuno Dangan. Multiple water projectiles formed as bullets quickly shot towards Tazuna and Sakura, who were standing in front of him. Naruto's eyes widened. He tried using his Shoton, but he didn't have enough chakra. Before he knew it, he was standing in front of Sakura with the worst pain he had ever had in his chest. He looked down and saw multiple holes. He looked at Kakashi, who had white eyes. Naruto coughed, causing blood to be spewed from his mouth. Faster than he could see, more water bullets were shot towards him with such force, it pushed him off the bridge and into the cold water below. The world began to blacken, and the last thing he heard was a female voice screaming his name. Tears brimmed Sakura's eyes before realizing she was the one who screamed. With Naruto slowly opened his eyes. As soon as he did, he shot up and bounced into a defensive stance. He looked around and couldn't see where he was. The last thing he remembered was falling off the bridge. And now he was in a sewer? No use of staying here, he thought, as he began making his way through the hall. The longer he went, the more an ominous feeling began to grow in his chest. At last he made it to a room with a big cage at the end. The only thing seemingly keeping it short was a piece of paper with the kanji for seal on it. A deep rumble came from the cage. "So, you've finally come here." Naruto squinted his eyes to try and see what was in the cage. "Who are you? Come closer and you'll see," the voice sound. Naruto carefully took a few steps towards the cage but jumped back when 4 enormous claws tried to hit him through the bars. "Gah. If it wasn't for this damn seal, I would shred you where you stand." Naruto quickly made 2 crystal tantos. "Kyuubi no Yoko," he stated. 2 red eyes opened in the cage as the Kyuubi stepped into view. "You're right, I am. And I see you're using my gift well," human Kyuubi said, saying the last part as if it was venom. Naruto didn't pay attention to it much. "If you are the Kyuubi, then this must be inside my mind. Very observant. Your predecessors weren't as clever the first time they came to face me." "Why am I here?" Naruto asked. "You're dying," Kyuubi stated flatly, as if he was talking about the weather. "I'm what?" Naruto asked, disbelieving. "Dying, as becoming dead, as not living," Kyuubi said, amused. He hadn't had this much fun since he had been sealed inside Kushina. Oh, how he could push her buttons. Naruto stared at the big fix. "This can't be happening. I'm dying, and worse, my last moments will be with a demon fox that has made my life a living hell." Naruto sat down and began thinking. He could remember from the books about Jinchuuriki that they sometimes could channel their tenant's power. Now it was just a question of how to get the Kyuubi to cooperate. "It's not like I can force him to do it. He is an ageless mass of chakra." But maybe, Naruto smirked to himself. "Well, if I am to die, I can't see any better way. I will have defeated one of the most powerful beings in this world." Kyuubi's laughter boomed through the sewer's. "Most powerful being? The Hyoten user is nothing compared to what I've seen. Heck, even by your puny standards, she wasn't much to talk about." "Oh, I'm not talking about her," Naruto stated. Kyuubi narrowed his eyes at the human standing in front of him. "Then who are you talking about?" Naruto smirked at Kyuubi. "You, of course. When I die, you die. You're sealed inside me. Too bad. I guess if you had enough time you could break out in some way. But that's not going to happen now." Kyuubi didn't have any answer to that. Naruto went for the kill. Unless what, human? Unless you lend me your chakra. I bet that those guys couldn't stand up to the might of the mighty Kyuubi no Yoko." "Watch it, humans," the fox growled. He was silent for a few seconds. "Very well, but you best not waste it. You are representing me. No way my vessel is going to lose to a bunch of thugs." Red mist began to emit from the cage and centered around Naruto. First only a little, then more, and more until Naruto couldn't see a hand in front of him. He heard the fox's deep laughter rumble through the mist. With Kakashi kept brushing off the attacking thugs. It seemed that it was only the 2 that attacked, killed. Naruto was shinobi. Kakashi kept glancing over at where Naruto had stood. There was a pool of blood spattering from where he had coughed up the blood. He looked over at Sakura, who looked to be on the brink of tears. Her mind almost went blank as the image of Naruto kept appearing, watching him die to save her. He was distracted for a moment and was just about to take a stab from the enemy when Zabuza blocked it. He glanced over his shoulder to look at Kakashi. "Kakashi, get it together. Don't let the blonde kid's death be in vain." Kakashi looked at Zabuza and nodded. "You're right." He turned towards the attackers again. He was going to protect the rest of his team. He broke his promise once already. He was not going to do it again. But he had also let his sensei down. Kakashi knocked out one of the attackers and was just about to do the same to another when he felt a huge chakra spike. He looked around. He wasn't the only one. Even the thugs without training seemed to sense something. Then a large quake happened, knocking many of the thugs off their feet. That was when Kakashi recognized the chakra. "It can't be. It's Kyuubi's chakra. I will never forget that feeling." He turned towards Sasuke, Sakura, and Tazuna. "Get off the bridge." Sasuke wasn't going to go that easy, but see. Now. Kakashi interrupted. Sakura ran over to Sasuke and tugged him in the arm. The 3 of them ran towards the entrance to the bridge while Kakashi, Zabuza, and Haku held off the thugs. Another quake happened, stronger than before. The 3 shinobi were forced to use chakra to stay on their feet. The thugs and Gato weren't so lucky and kept falling on their behinds. The shinobi took this as their chance and took out a good portion. By now there were about 30 left, give or take a few. Kakashi heard a big crash and waves being pushed away. He quickly looked and marveled at the sight. A big crimson crystal pillar was standing out in the ocean, towering the bridge by at least 10 meters. He got a burst of hope. Naruto. Another crash from the other side of the bridge, and another of the pillars appeared. 2 more appeared not long after. And then it happened. A pillar thicker and higher than any of them shuts up from the ocean by the end of the unfinished bridge. "You are dead, Gato," Naruto's voice sounded. But it wasn't like his usual voice, it was thick and dark with killer intent. Kakashi tried to see where he was and finally spotted him. On top of the last pillar a figure was standing on all fours. Naruto was looking around with red demon eyes, trying to figure out where his victim was. He jumped down onto the bridge, scaring the thugs. One of them tried to jump off the bridge but only made it half a meter off from it before a spike shot out from one of the pillars, killing him on the spot. Naruto laughed. "You don't want to come out and play Gatos-chan? Fine. I'll come and find you." The top of the pillar behind Naruto shattered in small pieces that swirled around him. Then he charged. He tore down enemies left and right. No one could escape him. They were swiped with his claw-like hands, impaled by the small crystals, and broken by his strong punches and kicks. Kakashi, Zabuza, and Haku could only look in awe and fear as Naruto tore through all their enemies. There were 20 left, then 15, then 10. As the last few fell, Gato came running towards them. "Please, save me. I'll give you anything, pay you any amount." "Not a chance," Naruto's demonic voice sounded. He charged a massive amount of chakra in his hands and slammed them into the ground, which began to glow dark red with chakra and moved at a fast pace towards Gato, who began running even faster. The other shinobi saw as the chakra caught up with the little tyrant and crystallized him. Not a few seconds after it shattered in atomic pieces. Nothing was left of Gato. "It is over," the blonde genin said. He looked at Kakashi and smiled. He began falling because of his exhaustion, only to be caught by Kakashi. "Naruto Nai-chan?" Inari asked. Naruto's eyes shut open to see Inari followed by Sasuke, Sakura, Tazuna, and the rest of the islanders. "Oh, hey Inari. What are you doing here?" Naruto asked, not even bothering hiding his exhaustion from the child. "We came to help. All the villagers." Inari answered, getting loud agreements from the villagers, who began to cheer on Naruto and his feat. The silver-haired Jounin looked at his student as Naruto's eyes shut close. The Jounin smiled. "You did good, Naruto." Inari went over to Kakashi. "Is Chan okay?" The Jounin smiled at the boy. "Yeah, he will be fine. He just needs a lot of rest." "That's good," Inari said excitedly and walked back to the villagers and told them the news. Kakashi took Naruto as piggyback and began heading over to Zabuza and Haku, who were both smiling. That stopped when they heard a voice they had hoped not to ever hear. "Mamachi Zabuza, Yuki Haku." The shinobi spun around and faced the new appearance. It was a squad of 4 shinobi, wearing the same mask as Haku had when they had first met. Zabuza sighed in defeat. "So you finally caught up to us. I will come peacefully, I only have one request. Let Haku go." Haku couldn't even move. His master was willing to give his freedom for hers. She was about to disagree when the hunter nin spoke up. "No, both of you are coming with us." Zabuza reached for his blade. "Then we will fight." The hunter nin squad leader shook his head. "You misunderstand, Zabuza-san. The 4th Mizukage is dead. We are here on behalf of the 5th Mizukage, Terumi Mei. She said you two were close comrades under the early stages of the civil war." Zabuza's eyes widened before narrowing. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "She really knows you well. She told us you would react like that and told us to tell you, even if the mist becomes bloody, doesn't mean it can't become pure again." Zabuza displayed a big grin. "Haku, we're going home again." He turned towards Kakashi and bowed. "I am sorry we had to meet under these circumstances. I hope to see you and that blonde brat again." Haku bowed likewise and wished Naruto-kun well. "I learned a lot from him." They both rose and walked to the hunter nin and then all disappeared with a shunshin. Kakashi and his 2 conscious genin walked back towards Tazuna's house, receiving a hero's welcome as they walked through the city. A week later, Team 7 was standing at the entrance to the newly finished bridge, preparing to go back to Konoha. The mission had taken a bit longer than they had anticipated, and they were all eager to get back home. To bid them goodbye were all the islanders led by Inari, Tazuna, and Inari. Inari was sobbing lightly, seeing his new hero and big brother go away. Naruto kneeled down beside him, and he tried to stop crying. "I have to stop crying, or you'll just call me a crybaby." Naruto smiled friendly at Inari. "It's okay to cry when you're happy. It just shows that you're human." Inari nodded and succumbed to full-out crying. Naruto hugged him goodbye and got up. Team 7 bids their goodbyes and begins their journey home. Standing back was the bridge builder and his family. Tazuna were smiling at the sight of Inari. He had gotten his grandson back. "Hey, we haven't named the bridge yet." Inari was looking at the fading vision of Team 7. "I think I have an idea." "Oh, really?" Tazuna asked, already having a hunch. "The Great Naruto Bridge," Inari said, as it was obvious. Several of the islanders voiced their agreement. Tazuna scratched his chin. "The Great Naruto Bridge, huh? Well, the name has given him plenty of luck. It should serve our bridge well." Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.